Hello, I'm Dr. Garrett Boyer. Welcome back to Gospel Minded, where we spend a few minutes discussing themes of psychology, behavioral health, emotional, psychological well-being as these themes emerge out of the Gospel reading for the week. So here we are, the fourth Sunday of Advent, and also happens to be Christmas Eve, December 24th. When I heard the gospel read at Mass today, it just really struck me. The gospel was the Annunciation story, and that reading has a special significance to me personally. When I got married, that was the reading that we chose for our wedding. It's just had a lot of relevance for me in my own life. But when I heard it and read it this year, especially with this in mind, that I was going to want to be talking about themes of behavioral health that come out of that reading. What struck me was this, getting unexpected news. Because here we have this scene where there's Mary probably minding her own business, and all of a sudden there's this celestial visitor who says, "Hail, full of grace, you will conceive in your womb and bear a son." Talk about getting some unexpected news, and the Virgin Mary responds to that in such a beautiful way. I think when we get unexpected news, it might look a little bit different to us. Not always, because unexpected news isn't always a bad thing. So take this for example. Your boss calls you into the office and sits you down and says, "Hey, listen, we really like what you're doing. Things have been going great. You're at that time where we think you're ready to handle more responsibility, so we're going to give you a promotion. You're getting increased responsibilities, but with that comes a pay raise and better benefits," and it's good news. That's unexpected perhaps, but definitely easy to respond to that. Or what about this? Your kid's school principal calls and says, "Hey, just wanted to let you know that the raffle for the school fundraiser has happened, and you won the grand prize, $2,000 cash." Wow, unexpected news. So these are two examples of getting unexpected news that are very easy to know how to respond. And most of the time, getting news like those two examples isn't going to leave us feeling bad or in a place where our psychological or emotional or behavioral health is taxed. No, I think more times the unexpected news that comes that leaves us feeling some kind of way is when that unexpected news is bad news. So say, for example, this same set of characters that I just referenced. Your boss brings you into the office and says, "Hey, listen, the company is restructuring some of the organization. Some transitions are going to be happening, and I'm sorry to say that there's not a place for you or for your job in this organization going forward." That's some unexpected bad news. Or what about if your kid's principal calls from school and says, "Hey, just wanted to reach out to you. Your child was involved in an altercation at school, and there have to be some disciplinary actions taken. Your child is going to be suspended for a week's time." Unexpected news, unexpected bad news. So these two examples, depending on the content, that unexpected news can look very different and leave us feeling some kind of way. And truth of the matter is that in real life, the bad news comes. It comes to us a lot throughout the course of life. And it doesn't have to be just from a boss or from people at school, but we can get bad news about a lot of things. Perhaps you or a loved one has gotten some bad news at the doctor's office, and there's a poor prognosis going forward. Perhaps something has happened at church. Perhaps something has gone wrong or went different than you expected it with one of your friends or peers. There are a lot of things that can be unexpected and that can be bad news that can really impact us and leave us feeling some kind of way. So how do we respond to unexpected news, especially if it's bad news? Because we don't all have the docility and humility and faith like Mary did in today's gospel to just say, okay, be it done unto me according to thy will. I think if I'm getting bad news, I respond differently and not always in the most helpful way. And that's probably true for you too. So what can we do when we are hearing bad news to respond in a more helpful, healthy way? I think the first thing is this: as you're receiving whatever news it is, it's important to just continue to breathe. Just deep, diaphragmatic, deliberate breathing. Because when you're hearing news like this that can be perceived as bad news, or they can have some of that bad content, it's going to trigger a lot of mechanisms in our brain, and it's going to cue a lot of systems to fire up, and we can find ourselves, even without realizing it, breathing more shallow. Perhaps your palms will get sweaty or clammy. Some of that anxiety might get keyed up and queued up. And so just taking a minute and remembering to breathe in the midst of it. Now, another thing is that I know it can be hard, but when we're receiving hard news or bad news, it's important to get the full picture or as many details as we can. Because what would happen too often is if we hear part of the story or we don't allow the news to really be explained to us, what happens is in our mind we'll start to put in some pieces where those gaps are. And all too often, what our mind will insert is not grounded in reality, isn't true. And so, hard though it may be, it's useful if we can get more details, a fuller picture of what the news is, even if it's not good. In the long run, it's probably going to be more helpful to just get the full story, the accurate story, rather than half of it or part of it, and then leave it to our imagination to try and, like I say, fill in some of those gaps, usually in a not so helpful way. Then another piece of this is allowing yourself to not catastrophize. I think a lot of times when we hear bad news, it can be easy for us in our mind to kind of jump to extreme conclusions. Take, for example, a young person who's trying to get into a prestigious college and they don't make it, and say they want to get into Yale or Harvard or someplace like this. And so all of a sudden their mind goes to, well, I must be dumb. I'm no good. I can't get into this school. So the catastrophizing is that I'm all bad, or that everything is bad. I'll never get into any school ever. Or if you find yourself getting laid off from work, I'll never find a job again. I'll never be able to get a job where I have this kind of salary or this sort of responsibility. We can catastrophize, and it's not helpful for us. It's better if we can ground ourselves in the reality, understanding that the bad news isn't good, but that very often it's not a matter of life or death here and now. And that a lot of times when we catastrophize in our mind, the catastrophe isn't the reality. Bad though a situation may be, it's almost never as bad as we believe it is in our mind. And then finally, the other piece is this. If we are people of faith, we have to believe that today, tomorrow, Christmas matters. That the good news is able to trump any bad news that we ever receive. And that the Word made flesh can give us the grace, can give us the Spirit to receive the bad news, and let us hope that something good can come out of it. I don't know about you, but it's happened to me several times in my life where I've heard something I didn't want to hear, or I've gotten some bad news, and at the time it looks just awful, and the picture that I paint in my head is bleak and dark. But then in actuality, looking back on it now, I can say, wow, though that was bad then, I can see that that had to happen in order for me to get to this place. Like I look at my life right now and I think, wow, in order for me to get to where I am today, some things that I didn't expect or some things that I didn't even think I wanted had to happen in order for life to work out the way it has. And I think that is a heartening thing to remember, that even in the midst of what we perceive as uncomfortable news or bad news, that he who is the good news can bring that which is good out of it. So I hope this is helpful. Here we are talking about bad news on Christmas Eve when we should be focused on the good news. And so I wish you a very good, blessed, happy, and Merry Christmas. And I hope that this season will be merry and bright, and that whatever intake we have, whatever news we get, be it good, bad, we'll be able to invoke the intercession of the Lord and his intervention and live a life truly full of grace. So Merry Christmas to you, grace and peace. Again, Dr. Garrett Boyer here at Gospel Minded. Take care.